Guys, I'm Cariso, writer for Absolute Legends, and today I'm joined by Jacob, coach by Fnatic. How are you, Jacob?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, Jacob. Thank you for agreeing to do the interview. So, the first question I have for you is one you probably get asked a lot, which is how did you get into esports?
Um, I got into esports, so I was always a bit of a gamer when I was a child. Um, like I started when I was really young, like Game Boy and PlayStation and stuff. But eventually I was like, pretty competitive as a teenager, and like my neighbor showed me Counter-Strike Source, and so I got really into Counter-Strike Source. Eventually got good enough to like join teams and kind of go to events and lands. So that's kind of where I kind of took most of my experiences. I made quite a lot of connections, because I was pretty decent, you know. When CS:GO came out, I was going to university, so I kind of had to choose between like playing CS:GO or university. And at that point, like there wasn't much money in CS at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was the first year, so basically, kind of took the choice to kind of go to university and just kind of become an adult essentially. And as I did that, like esports exploded and like all my friends were like coaches or like doing like observer work and things like that, and it was like, oh my god, there's loads of money in this. So essentially what ended up happening was I was a few years into doing graphic design, and then like COVID hit, so I kind of forced myself onto furlough, and then like Valorant came out at the same time, so like I just started a team with Boaster at that point, basically just to see if like it would go anywhere.
So, why did you decide to become a coach? Because, like you said, you had some previous experience as a pro player, right? Like, was it just you loved coaching or was something else?
I think what it was I had dabbled with it in the past a little bit. Like I tried, but like I tried in Counter Strike, for instance, and then like a week later, um, our best player got picked up by an American organization, and then the team kind of folded.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Xset's death for Valorant. Like I coached him for like a week essentially in Counter Strike. Um, I think I had been an in-game leader and like a support player during my time in Counter-Strike, and I think those skills kind of naturally lended me towards becoming a coach. Um, Also, I'm just not very good anymore. It's like I'm not mechanically like amazing, you know. Like I can sub in scrims, but it's not pretty. So I thought that I had a good skill set on the strategic side to kind of become a coach. And I think since joining Fnatic, I kind of learned that like there's a lot more to coaching than just kind of giving strats, you know. I have to do a lot more than just the strategic side. There's all this kind of like social side and personal side that kind of needs to be given attention to too.
So, for those who might not be like very familiar with the coach position, what is your job as a coach? Like, can you run me through your day to day? Like,
Sure. So I think every coach has their different kind of um, roles and responsibilities, and I think you need to be able to change depending on what team you have. So our team has a very set kind of thing that I'm trying to work on. So my team is very young and quite inexperienced. Like even Boaster, who's a bit older, like he's not too experienced as an IGL. So a lot of what I do is trying to um, develop them where I can and kind of help them with that inexperience. So
mhm.
we're kind of well known for being quite a structured team, and that comes from our players being a bit more inexperienced. So it doesn't mean that they have to make as many decisions at times. So I think maybe I'll just go through day to day. So day to day, our day starts off right now with like me being in a bit earlier than the boys and kind of prepping for the day. So I'll kind of watch VODs in the morning or kind of make some stuff in the morning for us to practice later on, and then usually some lunch, and then like I'll have like a one-on-one session with one of the boys, just watching back one of the scrims together, just pointing out some things that they need to work on or things that they need to go and kind of like. So like I try and make it not all spoon-fed, so it's not me making everything for them. Like I
Mhm.
actually try and encourage them to kind of, they need to be take initiative too, because I can't see everything at all times. Like if they're struggling in some areas, they need to kind of be honest with themselves about that, and kind of they need to take initiative on that too. And then we have some server time. So we just like go on the server. I show them what I want them to train for the day with Boaster. Boaster might have some stuff too. And then we just have some scrims. So anywhere between 3 to 5 scrims a day. Um, and we used to finish off with a VOD review, but I think right now we're kind of scrapping VOD review for the moment. Um, Instead, we kind of want the evenings to be more like okay, what did we learn from today, and where do we need to find stuff for tomorrow, kind of thing. So that's what we're doing right now.
So, and how do you prepare for your opponents? Probably watching VOD reviews is one of the main things you do, but what are other things you also do to prepare for your upcoming matches?
So usually me and both prepare. I try and ask the boys. I'm going to get them to do it more this season, I think, of them watching too, just to get like a sense for the opponent. So usually my job is to kind of look out for anything just pattern wise that the opponent does and any kind of cheesy gimmicks that they have. And I will show that to the appropriate members in the team. So like, if they got this weird smoke they do on B on Haven, then I'll show the person who plays B and kind of, make them
Hmm.
figure out a way to just play around that. I also boast him more watches for like a more serious game plan sometimes. So he might have like an idea that a certain area of the map is weak, and I'll kind of confirm with him whether I think the same thing, and we'll kind of come up with something together. But I think more so this season, I think I need to work on just more direct applications of what I see. So, some usually I give a bit of a vibe. I'm like, okay, this team plays a bit like this. We need to watch out for these things. But I think this season I want to be more direct with like, we need to be doing more of this against this
Hmm.
team and be a bit more specific because feel at times the interpretation might be lost at times. So I'm gonna try and do that this season.
So you obviously have a great intelligent roster. How is it to play with such like a group of players in coaching? A group of players as good as you have right now, especially in a big organization like Fnatic.
I mean, it's kind of crazy, right? Like just over a year ago, like our team was just an unsigned random team that no one
Hmm.
really heard of, and then now we're like a team that if we don't make it to lands, like people are like, they're bad, they're rubbish.
Yeah.
So it's quite nice to have stepped up. Um, but I don't really see it like the same as maybe working like I get it, like it's Fnatic and it's big, and
Hmm.
it's always a reminder that it's Fnatic, but I'm just working with the boys, like they're just my boys. I don't, it's not Durka to me. That's just Nikita.
Hmm.
Like it's impressive to watch him. And it's amazing, but like these are just my boys. So I don't really I don't get starstruck by them. They're just the people I work with, and they're great people to work with.
So what are like some of the intangibles and important things that each player brings to the team, in your opinion?
Ooh, it's a difficult question. I think it's quite obvious what Boaster brings to the team. Obviously he's quite a showman and kind of
Yeah.
gets us into the mood when we're kind of at events. Um, I think Dirk has got this very stone cold. He's really good at giving me feedback. To be honest, he's very insightful. He's like the star player you wish you had because he he's very disciplined and very
Hmm.
hardworking. He's that kind of star player that you want so that you can be like, look, this guy's getting 30 frags and he's also doing all this work on the side. Like, there's a reason why he's getting 30 frags, kind
Hmm.
of thing. Um, I think Magnum, I don't know if anyone's seen those like videos of him, but he's just a dweeb. He's like so funny. So he brings a lot of humor to the team. Um, Brave, I think with Brave now, he's a bit stone cold too, that kind of Russian feeling. He's quite good at kind of I've noticed a few times he's quite good at kind of getting the emotions back in the team because like our emotions dip quite low sometimes. It's good to have someone like him and Boaster to kind of be there to be like right guys, this is fine. Like we're all good. So someone helping out Boaster on that front is decent. And Mystic, what's his intangibles? What does he bring to the team? So I think Mystic was kind of like me and Boaster's little pet project to try and like build him into like from the ground up. And I think now he's got a certain leadership role in the team that like he's also there for Boaster quite a
Hmm.
lot. Because Boaster can't be there 100% all the time. Like he's got a lot on his plate. So Mystic's there just as like another voice in the team, kind of helping out with the boys, kind of thing. Putting us in the right direction during games.
So you touched on Brave F. Obviously, is the most recent addition to your team, right?
Yeah.
Uh, why did you choose like Brave F? Is he been fitting well on the team? Is he still on a adaptation period? How is it that going?
It's still a bit of an adaptation period, but it's not that difficult to adapt to our things, I don't think. I think we're quite good at bringing in new players and being like, these are kind of the ideas we have. these are some ideas we're looking at. Like, how do you want to help us? How do you want to play? And we kind of just mix and match and see what people are feeling. So, like with Durka and Magnum, for instance, when they joined, it was very much like, do whatever you want within our kind of system, and we'll kind of work out together like what suits
Hmm.
you. So I think we're just doing the same with Brave right now. So we tried a few players. I think at the end it was between him and a player called Indra, another Russian player. And we just felt that Brave kind of fit in with the team a little bit more. His like comms kind of meshed a bit better, and his utility was kind of supporting Durka because quite a lot of the job he's going to have is just to how he can support Durka, and so he's doing that quite well.
So, you guys had a lot of success last year, right? You finished for second at Master Reykjavik, top four at Champions, but in the middle of the year, you didn't attack the success most were expecting, right? What happened to that you guys had such a dip in performance, at least in the middle of the year after Master Reykjavik?
I think there were quite a lot of reasons, and I wouldn't be able to pinpoint them. Like, but I can explain that like we didn't have like Reykjavik was our first taste of like, success,
Hmm.
like with this roster, and so we didn't really know afterwards what we should be doing to kind of go back into tournament play because we only had like a week or two to kind of practice again. But we had a lot of things we wanted to change, and I think we ended up changing too much stuff. Um, so that was one thing, like my bad, Bosa's bad a little bit. I think another thing was that Boaster obviously shot into kind of stardom, like
Hmm.
overnight, the kind of success, and I think he was dealing with few things about how to kind of balance all these things, all this kind of new fame and kind of like how do you balance that with being a professional? Because he's obviously this super hardworking guy, and like how do you balance all that and all the new pressures? So that was something we've been working on quite a lot. And then even recently, I heard that Dirk had been going through some stuff personally back then, and I think we're kind of having a team environment now that's a lot more open to kind of talking about those things and making sure we're tracking them and making sure everyone's okay. So I think Dirk wasn't his hottest back then, and he had a few things going on. But I think overall, the biggest things was just we just changed too much, and we weren't bad. Like we lost to Giants in ways that I don't think we should have lost to them. But ultimately, like we went down to a 5 map 13-11 loss against Liquid, I think, to kind of not qualify for the next stage. So it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't our best. And
Hmm.
then we kind of played these third-party tournaments, and we were like trying to practice without structure. Like I wanted to see what we played like when we didn't play with structure. I didn't go very well, and that didn't really like bother me because it was just a third-party tournament. But like
Hmm.
everyone was like, "Oh my God, they're shit, they're crap," like they can't even beat these teams in these third-party tournaments, and it was like a bit embarrassing, but that's what they're there for, to like try out new things. So
So coming into champions, like I said, a lot of people were not valuing you as high, right?
mm.
I think most people would put you as the fourth best team going from EMEA, and many didn't think you had a chance at getting out of your group. So, what were you feeling the same way, or were you confident that you were able to do a great showing at champions?
When we found out what our group was, I was a bit more nervous because our group seemed pretty difficult.
Hmm.
Um, but we all believed that we were still one of the best teams in the world. Like we weren't going to champions thinking we couldn't win champions, and I still think looking back, like there was very real possibilities of us getting to the final and kind of having a good game versus the Sun kind of vibe. But we fell short. But yeah, no, we really had the confidence going in, and all the interviews I had before was like, we're not going anywhere. We're not gonna, fall over against these teams. Like we're really good. Like yeah, so we had confidence going in. Obviously, our group was a bit difficult, but it wasn't a surprise that we came out top in our group. I think people have a very good recency bias, a big recency bias for Valorant,
Hmm.
and like there's not enough competition for you to really have recency bias sometimes because you have one off day and that could be your season over for 3 months.
Yeah.
Like so I think people are a bit not quite understanding what we're about because we're not going to go to a LAN and fall over. Like we were really prepared. We work really hard. We have good players. Like to say we're going to come last in our group or not even make it out potentially. I think was people underestimate us quite a lot.
Do you think that the fact you have quite some time to prepare, and also had some third-party tournaments, like you said, to play and see how the new things will work out. Help you guys have such a good run at champions.
Mm, I think so. It meant that our fracture could get really strong because no one had really seen our fracture. But I think quite a lot of the time when so like at champions, for instance, we played the group stage and we had like a week break
Hmm.
before the crew game, and that kind of put us off a little bit. I think quite often you see with teams that are waiting for other teams to kind of play, like they end up losing that game. Like all of these qualifiers where you got seeded teams going through to the next stage before, they always seem to come out worse. So I think in general that's not a great thing, but I think generally having quite a bit of time to prep for a tournament is always going to help our team. So that when we get to the tournament, we know exactly what we're doing. We're kind of hit the ground running kind of thing. And obviously, like between Masters 2 and 3, the little break didn't help us. Like we needed a bit longer, you know. So that's something we're learning for next year. It's like if we have a little break, then we need to kind of be realistic about the amount of things that we're going to change for the next kind of tournament.
So one of the things I want to talk about is your LAN performance, because you guys seem one of the best teams online, right? You had a great showing at Reykjavik, then at Valorant Champions, and most teams will call you a LAN team, which is a great thing to be, right? Do you really feel like the LAN environment makes you play your A game, or what is it about your team, your players, that you play so well at LAN?
I would say, not to be too pessimistic, but I would say that a lot of teams, the level at LAN seems to get a little bit lower in
Hmm.
general, and I don't think our performance drops as much on LAN. I think we keep a pretty steady momentum, which means online, like there might be teams that are just a little bit better.
Yeah.
I would say in general, I think that like Boaster's kind of showmanship shows up a lot easier at LAN, and he gets into kind of like leader mode a bit easier at LAN with all the kind of spotlight and stuff. And that's something we're working on with him online to be like, well, we still need that level. If we can get that level online, like we're unbeatable kind of
Hmm.
thing. I think also just the players just get into it too. They just really kind of, it feels more real, And they're only like really young players who haven't been to many lands, so they don't have. Some CS players have this excuse that like, oh, it's not at LAN, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then I don't think our players are kind of experienced enough yet to kind of be at that level. So I kind of like, it's online. We need to kind of treat it the same. We need
Hmm.
to kind of get into that same zone and mood. And I want to hear the comms being the same as at LAN. We need to be shouting and kind of having fun. So that's something we'll work on this year for sure.
So, how is the preparation going for the MA Stage 1 challenges? Obviously, you have your first game this week against U2. So, is the preparation going good? How do you feel about?
We're still kind of focusing on ourselves right now. Um, I'll start looking at G2 a little bit closer, probably this today and like the next few days.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think we're pretty confident with our map pool. I think there's a few things that we kind of need to work on and kind of change. And official competition is where your stuff gets tested. And the moment we get tested, we'll be doing our homework and making sure we're fixing stuff and kind of improving from then on. But yeah, no, we're feeling pretty confident that we're in a good spot.
So, are you feeling really confident about your group? You have in Group B, right? With Ascent, Supermassive, Blaze, Guild, Esports, PBL, G2. Do you think you have a really good shot at making the playoffs, and even maybe in the first spot of the group?
I think first spot would be difficult against Ascend. Like I think Ascend and us, like they've beaten us in the past and they're a really good team and they got all this confidence from champions. So I think that would be a really difficult game. I think that the rest of the teams, I think we have an edge over. And I think that going out of this group in like second place is probably reasonable or realistic. Obviously gunning for that first place against Ascend and getting some revenge for losing in the past to them. But yeah, I think our group is pretty reasonable. I think that people thought our group was stronger than the other group, and then I
Mhm.
remember Gobby saying he thought that Group A was stronger. I think our group has more kind of big names. I think there's teams in Group A like London United that are a bit kind of maybe underrated or even like big. So yeah, I'm pretty confident with our group. And I think it'd be fun to play these big teams, and week by week playing these teams is going to be so much fun because usually it's like you don't play some teams for like weeks on end or
Yeah.
months. Like some teams last year we played 6 times, and some teams we played like once. So it's quite fun to be able to see all these different teams and see how they kind of stack up.
So By talking with Tommaso, the coach from United, and also Kandi, the coach from Big, they wanted to play against like teams like the Big Four, the Sand, the Team Liquid, Gambit, and Fnatic, because they wanted to see like if the gap between you guys and like the other teams is really that big. Do you feel there's like such a big gap, or what are your thoughts about it?
No, I don't think there's that big a gap. I think that it's the same you see in NA right now, right? Like TSM might not be tier one, but
Mm-hmm.
like, as a tier 1.5 team, like they're struggling against these kind of upcoming teams, and you got all these upsets happening in NA, and I think that's just an indicative of Valorant right now. Like it's MR12, not MR16 or MR15, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's abilities and there's momentum and it all kind of stacks up to be quite not random, but like the RNG is a bit higher than other FPS games, I'd say. So if you're not on your day or if you're hitting some shots, like anyone could beat anyone, and that sounds really cheesy to say, but like it's true, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the skill level between some of the teams isn't that high. There isn't a massive gap between London United Big and other teams, I would say. Like there are some of the teams that I'm stealing stuff from right now. I watch their VODs, so I kind of know that they're good. I mean, over time, I think their rosters might become a more rounded out. Like, they might not have the five that they want for the next 2, 3 years, but like, Big have made really good roster changes, and yeah, so they look really good. So I think yeah, the kind of safe answer, the cheesy answer is like there's not that big a gap.
Mm-hmm.
I think there definitely is a kind of like probably a top 4 or 5, and then a little bit of a gap, then the kind of tier two.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll have to see this year, like, how are these teams? Are they going to step up to the plate and kind of become tier one teams?
Mm-hmm.
Like which of those teams are going to do it? Because it's not common for those tier two teams to actually make it to tier one. I don't think. It's usually, they have a bit of a bright spot and then they kind of fall away. So I want to see them kind of step up. Yeah.
How do you think you match up in terms of playstyle to the teams in your group? What is the team like? Do you think like in terms of playstyle will give you the biggest challenge?
So I saw this, like you sent me this question before, and I
Mm-hmm.
just to check, and I did think about it. I was like, the teams in our group don't play like us, and I didn't realize it. Like Group A has a lot more teams like Gambit, London United, Big that are more structured like
Yeah.
us and have a more kind of coach IGL system, it seems. I'd say our group is a bit more freestyle, more kind of individual power. But I don't think it's like a triangle where like one thing beats the other thing beats the other thing. It's more you just have to be prepared for that stuff. We've never really had troubles dealing with those teams in the past. Like it's not like we've noticed that we've lost to those teams specifically. Maybe at the start of the year when we had like a different roster, we struggled against that stuff. But I think now we have a good blend of like players who can pop off individually. If we want to do just a rush, we can do a rush. If we
Mm-hmm.
want to kind of play a bit more picky, we can. So we have more kind of options to deal with teams like that. And I think quite honestly, like anti-stratting those teams, they still have their tendencies. They still have things that I can kind of be like, this player's always going to do this pick, or. So there's not really too much difference. I think our first game against G2, I think G2 are one of the teams that do look more structured. And I know Pipson as a coach a little bit, like he's kind of more my vibe in terms of like setting up a bit of a structure. So I think that might be a different game to kind of the rest of the games. But yeah, I'm looking forward to just see how we kind of set up against these teams.
So when I talked with Kandi, the coach from Biggie, it said that for teams to be like the best in the world in tier one level, they should be able to play in a structured way, but also adapt on the fly. Otherwise, it would be easier to find weak spots on the team's games. Do you agree with that opinion?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's hard to make a system that kind of, accounts for everything, Like
Mhm.
even the best systems and strategy are going to have like, like things you could do like over and over. And I think the best way to play sometimes is to have that structure and then to kind of be able to kind of just ignore that structure
Mhm.
completely. So especially in a game like Valorant, where like a team can be doing something you've never seen before, and your system might not be prepared to deal with that thing. Like you have to be able to call on the fly. So that's something with Bosa I've been working with quite a lot on. Is like when he we first started working together, he was like, I just want to call a strat at the start of the round and kind of finish it off. And I'm
Mhm.
like, well, in the long term, that's not going to work. Like we can't just rely on just having one strat at the start of the round. We're going to need to have like a default and like work out like, mid round. Sometimes you're going to have to make a call based on something that's going on that's not, within our playbook. So he's been doing better at kind of seeing how our strats work and then m- like crafting the mid round to kind of work for what's happening on the map. And I think he's working quite hard at kind of getting better at that. And then the boys' job is to kind of they need to start recognizing these patterns too, because it's very difficult for both to just be the only one kind of reading the map and kind of doing that stuff too. So they're starting to feed more information and kind of also making calls too. Like if Magnum notices an area of the map is weak, or there's a opportunity for us to do one of our strats, like he'll kind of step up and call it, and all the boys are working on that basically.
So obviously you said at the beginning of the interview like you are a big team expected to go attend lines, etc. So what are your main goals as Fnatic for this year?
So we had a group kind of chat about this recently, and I think the general vibe was that we wanted to win at least one trophy this year. We didn't get to win a trophy yet,
Hmm.
so win a trophy is definitely one of them. I think the general vibe is to go to every LAN and then obviously go to champions. Obviously, like winning champions is the easy thing to say, but
Yeah.
like the reasonable goal for this year is to win something actually, like
Hmm.
lift a trophy, go into all these lands, and then go into champions. I think that's the kind of reasonable goal we're setting for ourselves.
So Jacob, is there anything else you want to say to the fans or the Fnatic players?
Thank you for supporting us, and I hope you didn't get too depressed during our low last year during the autumn. And I thank everyone who kind of stuck with us and kind of watched us even through champions and kind of saw how like we're still a good team, and we're hoping that this year we kind of grow and improve and get even better than next year. So thank you all, and thank you for interviewing.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing to do the interview, Jacob. And I want to wish you also the best of luck in your EMEA Challenger runs and the rest of the year in the tournament. So thank you a lot.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a good day.